Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining the Electrification Caucus co-chairs today for a call to action. I am so proud to be leading the first ever bicameral Electrification Caucus, working with incredible colleagues like Senator Tina Smith of Minnesota, Representative Paul Tonko and Kathy Castor, who I both got to serve with in the House of Representatives. And I'm thrilled today to have Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner, CEO of Rewiring America, Ari Matusik, and Redfin CEO Glenn Kelman joining us to share their perspectives as well. I've got two teenage sons, and I know just how attuned our kids are today to how their future is going to be impacted by the climate crisis. And I think all of us would agree that we need to treat this moment like it's our best chance to make a big difference on the type of planet and future that we'll pass down to our kids and to future generations, because frankly, it is. The engineer in me has always learned to break down even really big, complex problems into manageable pieces. And any way you look at it, cleaning up our energy sector will play the largest role in our climate fight. Almost 90% of our greenhouse gas emissions come from our use of fossil energy sources, from coal to fossil gas to oil. And many of us just don't realize how big a role the machines and the appliances within our own households and in our businesses and in our driveways, the role that they're playing in this. The decisions that we make around our kitchen tables about the cars that we choose to drive, the appliances that we use directly, impact our family's health and contribute to the carbon pollution in our atmosphere. And it's not just our cars and trucks, though we certainly need to accelerate the transition towards electric vehicles, particularly in the United States, where we have actually fallen behind many other countries in EV adoption and EV manufacturing. We also need to confront the millions of gas-fired hot water heaters, furnaces, stovetops, and ovens that are in our homes and offices. There are substantially better, safer, cleaner electric alternatives for each of these fossil fuel burning machines in our homes. And each of these electric substitutes can help reduce our climate pollution, can improve our home health, and create savings on our energy bills. Now, I want to emphasize, after seeing so many spikes in fossil gas and home heating oil prices this winter, that one of the best ways that we can insulate more families, more consumers, from the price swings associated with fuel-based commodities is electrification. This transition toward electrification will also lower costs for Americans. Efficient electric appliances cost much less to operate, leading to substantial savings on our monthly utility bills. Installing electric appliances also eliminates the unhealthy indoor air pollution created by fossil fuel-fired appliances, something that's really underappreciated in the public today. The catch right now is that the cost for these up-to-date, most modern, clean electric appliances are often more expensive for consumers on the front end, even though they provide enormous savings over the course of their lives. This will change as more of us choose electrification. As the market encourages American manufacturers to produce more and more of these appliances, that in turn will dramatically drive down costs for consumers. It's a predictable cost versus adoption curve that we've seen play out time and again with consumer goods like cell phones. But it stands right now, as it stands, we still need to levelize those upfront point of sale costs, especially for the low and middle income households who stand to benefit the most from savings on their energy bills. And that is exactly what our bill, the Zero Emission Homes Act, would do by establishing a new point of sale rebate program for electrified appliances. It's critical that we provide targeted economic incentives that will help low and middle income families realize the full benefits of electrifying their homes. Because a climate solution that leaves low income families behind is not really a climate solution at all. Now, all of us worked really hard to secure a version of the Zero Emissions Home Act rebates alongside the game-changing incentives for clean energy and transmission projects that were included in the larger climate investments that the House passed as part of the Build Back Better Act. We all know that the Build Back Better Act has hit some real roadblocks in the Senate, but we are here today to say loudly and clearly that we need to find a way forward on these transformative climate investments. This remains our best chance to enact major climate investments at the federal level, and we need to get this done. I will keep doing everything I can to make sure that electrification rebates are part of the final equation. And with that, it is absolutely my honor to turn it over to my colleague from Minnesota and co-founder of the Electrification Caucus, Senator Tina Smith.
Well, thank you so much, Martin, and thank you for leading us on this charge, no pun intended. And I am just so grateful to be here with Representative Castor and Representative Tonko, as well as Mayor Turner, pardon me, and Ari and Glenn. So climate change isn't waiting for us to take action. A clean energy future is also, it's going to happen. And the question before us is whether we decide to lead or whether we end up following. And if we lead, this presents nothing but opportunity for us. Strong climate action and the transition to clean energy will reduce carbon emissions. It will be good for jobs. It will be good for the economy. It will be good for our health. And it will be the right thing to do to make our economy more fair. And as Martin was just saying, we can do this without raising utility costs for households and businesses while putting the United States at the forefront of a clean energy transformation with innovation and new clean tech and building out domestic supply chains. So there are three things that we need to do that we can do right now to make a big difference. The first is to clean up the electric grid by transitioning fast to clean power. The second is, of course, to make sure that we do everything we can to be as energy efficient as possible. And third, of course, why we're here today, because we need to electrify everything that we can: building, heating and cooling, household appliances and other consumer goods, transportation, everything. And when we do this, we will be reducing carbon emissions, and that's good. We can make things in America, which is good for jobs and competitiveness, and it is good for our economic resilience, and it is good for lower energy costs for consumers. The clean energy tax credits in our climate action plans will reduce utility bills. Electric heat pumps would save consumers about $500 a year, and electric vehicles will pay for themselves as customers save on fuel and maintenance costs. So the payback is really high here. And we also know that the transition can be expensive for people. These upfront costs can be a hurdle, even a disincentive. You save money in the long run, but it costs money upfront. And so that is why it is so important that we pursue these tax credits and rebates to help reduce those upfront costs and to make it feasible to electrify now and to make it fair for everyone to have access to that opportunity. This is especially important in this moment as we figure out how we can electrify everything. So when we move forward, we're going to be able to accomplish our big goals. We're going to see major opportunities across our economy and for households in Minnesota and in every part of the country. So we have to pass the strongest possible climate clean energy legislation now. For the Senate, this means we have to figure out right now what has 50 votes to pass, and then we need to pass it. And I know that we can do this. I know that my colleagues here are committed to get this done. And I'm here to tell you that it is sooner rather than later, and the sooner the better. We can't waste this moment for the good of our planet, for the good of our children and our grandchildren, for the good of lower energy prices, and for great paying American jobs, and for the competitiveness and strength of our economy. We need to get this done. So I'm so grateful for the work of all of my colleagues on this most important issue. So next, let's hear from our fellow co-chair of the Electrification Caucus and strong, effective climate champion, Representative Paul Tonko from New York.
Thank you, Senator Smith and Senator Heinrich, because it's so great to join with Representative Castor for forming this group, which obviously will make very pronounced statements about the boldness that is required right now of America to compete effectively on an international scale. It's now or never. We will be passed by other nations if we don't invest and invest deeply and wisely into the innovation that is required. This is indeed a clean energy challenge, and we need to meet that challenge. You know, that means working to make certain that there is efficiency across the board, efficiency in how we generate electricity, efficiency on how we transmit that electricity, and efficiency on how we consume that electricity. That is what the message should be. Historic investments in wind and solar mean our grid is getting cleaner, and electrification means we can use that clean electricity to power all aspects of our lives. But we must make certain that electrification is not just technically possible, but accessible to everyone, especially our most vulnerable neighbors. Investments like those in Build Back Better will make that possible. There is funding at EPA to support electrification of medium and heavy duty vehicles, think to the tune of $5 billion. And then our ports receive some $3.5 billion in that scheduled plan. Today, that pollution disproportionately impacts communities suffering from environmental injustice. There is a greenhouse gas reduction fund of some $30 billion, which could be partially used by state and local governments and nonprofits to set up revolving loan funds and loan loss reserves to promote electric technologies and charging infrastructure. These investments will complement the electric appliance rebates at DOE, some $6.25 billion worth, which will be targeted to low and moderate income families. These are just a few of the programs in the House passed package, which will accelerate our transition to a healthier, cleaner, and more competitive nation. If enacted, these programs, as well as those much talked about clean energy tax incentives, both mentioned by both senators, will play a major role in transitioning our country to an electrified energy system. They will build upon the investments in the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law to promote EV charging and grid modernization, to make our electric infrastructure more reliable and flexible to accommodate increasing electricity demands. So climate change and air pollution are affecting people as we speak. So we need to act with a high degree of urgency. We need Build Back Better. We need it now. Failure is not an option. And as a member of the House, I stand ready to do whatever I can to help our Senate colleagues get this package over the finish line. What we need in this moment is aspirational politics, moving up to a higher level, a higher ground, one that speaks forcefully to greater stewardship of the environment, greater benefits coming from energy that is addressed through efficacy, through efficiency standards, and making certain that we as a nation make a bold statement that we are in this game, raring to compete and competing because we have the muscle that Build Back Better provided for us. With that, I thank you. Senator, are you introducing my colleague, Representative Castor, or am I?
Sure.
Okay.
First, I want to say thank you,
Right.
Representative Tonko. It's so good to have an engineer in the House of Representatives.
Well, there were two mechanical engineers in the House until you left, so I was left lonely. But it's great to work with you in the Senate.
Charged.
Okay.
Well, with that, we're going to hear from another incredible climate champion, the chair of the House Select Committee on the Climate Crisis, Representative Kathy Castor.
Well, thanks, Senator. It's great to be with you all today, especially the incomparable Mayor Turner. Good afternoon from Tampa, Florida. The climate crisis is harming American communities right now, and it's costing families and businesses a lot. We're dealing with deadly heat waves, extreme rain events, flooding, and deadly out of the ordinary storms all across the country. These warning signs are telling us that it is time to act. It's past time. And we know what we need to do. In 2020, my Select Committee on the Climate Crisis released our Climate Crisis Action Plan, laying out more than 700 solutions to solve the climate crisis. And electrifying our economy our homes, our businesses, our cars is a central part of the plan. Electrifying our future is not just about reducing pollution. It's going to help American families save money and build better lives. Electrifying our future is about switching to efficient heat pumps that save families money on monthly utility bills while keeping their homes warm. Putting an induction stove makes cooking faster and cleaner. And plugging in an electric vehicle means no more volatile gas prices at the pump. All of these economic benefits are complemented by the potential to create good paying local jobs. We'll put Americans to work manufacturing, installing, and servicing these electrified machines in my hometown and in yours. And that's why Democrats in Congress and the Biden administration are working to make electrification accessible to all Americans. We passed the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, which invested in EV charging stations and electric school buses. And in the House, you all know, we passed the Build Back Better Act, which included important climate provisions like electrification rebates and clean energy tax credits. I know our friends in the Senate are working hard to turn those into law, including our co-chairs, Senator Heinrich and Senator Smith. We're proud to work together to turbocharge electrification so we can save families money and make the air we breathe cleaner. Thanks again to my colleagues for championing this important matter. We've got to get it done. We've got to get it across the finish line. And thanks to Senator Heinrich, Senator Smith, and all of you, I know we're going to get there.
I am so excited about this electrification caucus. As you can see, we have really dynamic co-chairs working on this and lots of great members. But I think it's important that we hear from the incredible leadership that already exists on this issue at the local level. We're about to hear from Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner. The reality is Houston has seen the changing climate up front many times, and they have leadership that is stepping up to make a difference. And with that, Mayor Turner, we are so glad to have you and looking forward to what you have to say.
Thank you, Senator Heinrich and Senator Smith, Representative Tonko, and certainly Representative Castor. Good to be with you again, and to Ari and Glenn. Look, I could not agree with everything that I've heard. In the last 6 years, Houston has faced 7 federally declared disasters in the last 6 years. So I would like to thank Congress for passing the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. This historical investment in our nation's infrastructure already represents the largest effort to date to curb climate change and build resilient communities. So thank you. As leaders, we must approach investments holistically and consider how every dollar contributes to a more resilient neighborhood, city, state, and country, one that leaves no one behind. And as we invest in our infrastructure, we must also invest in our people and give them the tools to build a more resilient, sustainable, and equitable society. Equity is the key in everything that we do. To realize the full potential of the Biden-Harris administration's vision, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and the Build Back Better Act, or whatever name you choose to put on it, must go hand in hand. Cities are ground zero for the impacts of a changing climate. We feel it in our homes, on our streets, our neighborhoods. In Houston, as I've said, 7 federally declared disasters in 6 years. That said, cities like Houston are also leading the way in reducing emissions and creating more resilient communities. In these efforts, local governments acting alone simply will not achieve the kind of paradigm shift required to meet the objectives of the Paris Agreement. Instead, we need to incentivize all sectors of society to join in that effort. The Build Back Better Act is not a nice to have, it is a must have. And we hope that it will pass eventually. In Houston, almost half of our greenhouse gas emissions come from transportation. Accordingly, Houston has committed to electrifying 8,000 vehicles in our city fleet by 2030. And as mayor, I formed Evolve Houston, a coalition of civic and business leaders with the goal of electrifying our public transit sector to cut it in half by 2030. But to significantly reduce our transportation-related emissions, we will need to electrify our public transit, personal vehicles, and the private fleets that distribute goods and services. The other half of our carbon emission comes from the energy we use to power our buildings, cool and heat our homes. We are the energy capital of the world, but that does not mean we should not lead in energy transition. The city of Houston is leading by example by powering 100% of our municipal buildings with 100% renewable electricity. And that took place as of July of 2020. But of course, city buildings only represent a fraction of the overall real estate and energy usage. In the absence of state-led initiatives to increase renewable energy sources, federal incentives for residential rooftop solar systems will be critical to reducing emissions from the power sector. As Houston, the state of Texas, and much of the southeastern United States painfully remember Winter Storm Uri and the widespread blackouts that ensued, it is worth mentioning that rooftop solar panels also have the potential to lighten the load on our grid and create more resilient neighborhoods. And with the right incentives, solar power can help address the energy burden faced in our most disadvantaged communities. To conclude, cities can drive the actions, partnerships, and investments we need to take better care of our planet and our people, but we can't do it alone. And adequate federal funding is critical. And I want to thank you for your efforts in the past and what we will do together tomorrow. But urgency is the key. And we recognize, and when I'm saying in the city of Houston, the energy capital of the world, that the paradigm must shift and we must do it now. And hopefully this city will lead the way. And if it can be done in Houston, let me tell you, it can be done anywhere.
Mayor Turner, thank you for your leadership. It's really inspirational and should motivate all of us. Next up, we're going to turn to Ari Matusik, the CEO of the nonprofit Rewiring America. Rewiring America is leading the national movement to electrify everything and has been an invaluable partner for our caucus getting off the ground. So with that, let's turn it over to Ari.
Thank you, Senator Heinrich. It's wonderful to be here today. Thank you, Senator Smith, Representatives Tonko and Castor, for bringing us together and for your continued and inspiring leadership on these issues. We couldn't be more pleased to work with all of you. I also want to thank Mayor Turner and Glenn Kelman for their leadership on passion for and commitment to addressing the climate crisis. This group is the example of exactly what we need to create: public and private, national and local leaders all coming together in common cause. While we're gathered here today, actions by leaders of other nations a world away are causing gas prices for American families to go up here at home. That's happening right now. According to recent reports, 1/2 of the inflation effects American households are facing today come from rising energy costs. Costs American families must pay to get to work, to take their kids to school, and to keep their families warm this winter. That's not coming from the price of electricity, which is up 3%. It's coming from the price of natural gas and delivered fuels like oil and propane, which are up over 50% in parts of the country. And this isn't the first time these price shocks have happened. Over the last 20 years alone, American families, what they pay to heat their homes and water and drive their cars, have been subject to similar bouts of volatility. And that doesn't make a lot of sense. In particular, it doesn't make a lot of sense once you understand that as many as 116 million out of 121 million households in the US would actually save money on the cost of heating their water and homes at current prices if they had modern, efficient electric machines responsible for those things. That number is probably even higher once you factor in the significantly lower cost of driving an EV over an internal combustion engine car. So the upshot is this: nearly every household in the United States could save money on their energy bills if they electrified the machines they use to get to work and to take their kids to school, to heat the air and water in their homes, to cook their food, or to dry their clothes. Nearly every household. That seems like the very definition of a no-brainer win-win opportunity. Why wouldn't we make that happen? It turns out we can, because the climate provisions in the Build Back Better Act meet the moment on climate by providing direct value to American households. It may actually be best to understand the Build Back Better provisions as a kitchen table approach to combating climate change, giving us a shot at staying inside a 1.5 degrees Celsius warming by helping American families save money on their energy bills, improve the quality of the air in their homes, and create good paying jobs in our communities, electricians, plumbers, builders, that can never be automated or offshored. And that makes sense because 42%, as the mayor said, of our energy related emissions come from the decisions that get made around those kitchen tables. What kind of cars we drive, how we heat the air and water in our homes, cook our food, dry our clothes. And there are a billion machines associated to those decisions that need to be installed or replaced across all of our homes. The way to do that is by doing what this distinguished group of leaders in Congress have been pushing for, to make clean, efficient electric machines the most affordable and convenient ones to purchase and install. Because who wouldn't want to save money on their bills and live more comfortably? Who wouldn't want to reinvest in their communities and create good paying jobs across all of them that'll last? Who wouldn't want America to manufacture the billions of machines we're going to need and the rest of the world are going to need to get to this clean energy future? The climate provisions in Build Back Better are a down payment on doing all of those things. They are a no-brainer. They are within our grasp, and American families deserve our best in getting the job done. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Ari. Well said. And finally, we're going to hear from the CEO of Redfin. Mr. Kelman, Glenn Kelman, actually wrote a great opinion piece last month about why homeowners should switch from fossil fuel fired technologies to electric appliances. Glenn, please take it away.
Oh, well, thanks, everybody. I wish I'd written out my remarks so I could be as eloquent as all of you are. That was amazing. But I'm here just to talk about what people buying and selling homes are going through, because that's my firsthand experience. There are all sorts of academic theories around climate change. There's all sorts of political opinions, but no one who is moving has any doubt about climate change. 1 in 5 people that we serve say that climate has reduced the value of their home. 1 in 4 are moving because they're worried about climate change and whether a wildfire is going to sweep through their neighborhood or they're going to get flooded out or something like that. So this goes beyond right and left. It is a really urgent issue for people. They are willing to pick up their whole family and go across the country to try to insulate themselves from climate change. And our own experience with this is that when we publish climate data on our website, it outperforms everything else that people are looking at on that webpage, because people are so worried that over 5, 10, 20 years that they own a house, everything could change about that neighborhood based on the climate. The challenge isn't convincing people to worry about climate resiliency. The challenge is to get them to pay to reduce their own climate impact. My experience with this is that people go crazy when they try to buy a house. They are getting a mortgage that puts them at the absolute limit of what they can afford. And then when you talk to them about solar panels and heat pumps and an induction stove, they just don't have the dough. And so we cannot ask American consumers to step up on this one, because they aren't going to be able to afford the house and the upgrade. We need the government to step in. This is the kind of long-range thinking and collective action that you have a federal government for. So let's cut the crap and pass the bill. That's my vote.
Thank you, Glenn.